What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Slow Restoration, and we are on our way back to hopefully, may not finish it up today, but the Turbo GMC, the new Turbo GMC build. We're going to gap the rings today, and we'll get as far as we can. Hopefully we can get the heads back on, all that kind of stuff, and try and get this thing finished up. We do have an appointment for this Thursday at the dyno. Let's hope we can make it. And of course the weather is absolutely horrible today, but we'll be working inside, so that's cool. All right, we're back here. Mike got a bunch of the stuff cleaned up, intake cleaned up, blocks cleaned up. He's working on, got the oil pan over here on his wheelchair. So we're nice and clean. He spent all yesterday cleaning. Let's get back to work and get these rings filed, get the pistons back installed, and keep going. We got the block all cleaned up. So the first step here is our piston ring installer. Also, it's the tapered aluminum. Once we get this set up, the clamp adjusts to the size. I think this does a 4-inch bore to a 4-inch 30 thousandths bore, and you can adjust it, but you just kind of lay this on and push the piston right through. It's tapered, it's got a flat section that matches the bore size, and it'll slip right through. But we don't need that yet. First thing we're going to do is grab a pair of rings and do them per cylinder and measure the gap, and then file them and keep filing and remeasuring until we get our desired ring gap. We're actually going to do 30 thousandths first and second ring here. So let's grab the first set, throw them in the cylinder, and we'll show you how it works. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take the top ring here and we're going to put it in the cylinder that we're doing. This is number 1 cylinder. This is number 1 top ring. There's a dot on the ring. I'm holding it. So right there's a dot. That dot's always going to go up, first and second ring. We're going to put this in the cylinder. We're going to use the piston to square the ring and the bore, and then we're going to take our feelers gauge and measure that gap. When it's all said and done, after filing it, like I said, we want 30 thousandths or really close to it, but we need to find out what it is to see how much we got to take out. So we have our ring in the cylinder there right at the top. We're going to take our piston and use it for a square tool. The second ring is still in it. We'll put this down in the cylinder. Let me show you that. So with that second ring hanging out like that, we'll just push that down till it hits the top of the bore, or the, what do you call it, the deck surface. Now our ring is, let's get you around here so you can see, our ring is now squared in the cylinder. Now we take our gauge and put it in there. We want light pressure. We'll pull it out, and that is going to be our current ring gap. And we are at 25 thousandths. Yeah, there you go. So without touching them, they're at 25. So we need to take 5 thousandths out. So we'll pull the ring back out of the cylinder. Nice and gentle when you do this. We have the ring back out. We're going to carry it over to our filer. So here's our old trusty ring filer. It's just got a abrasive wheel in the center and a hand crank. It's got these little notches. You set the ring down, pull it back against them. You're just going to squeeze that so it sits flat against the wheel. You're going to spin it, and that files each side of the ring evenly. It doesn't take much to start removing material, so put it on there, try it, throw it back in the cylinder, square it up, and remeasure the gap, and by the end of it you'll have a really good idea of how long it takes to take how many thousandths out. So we have our first ring filed. We got it at 30. I'm satisfied with that. We have our second ring back off the piston in the cylinder, squared up. So we'll measure that and see where we're at now before we start filing. So it's a good thing we actually checked that. I put that in there. That's the second ring, squared it up in the cylinder, and my 30 thousandths fits. Our next size is 32 thousandths, and it does not fit. So it's somewhere in the like 30 and a half to 31 thousandths, which is fine, but we didn't even file that one yet. Unfortunately, we have to check every one just to make sure, because that top ring was definitely tighter. But it's tedious. You got to pull each ring off the piston, reinstall it in every one of the cylinders it came out of, check it. If it needs adjusted, adjust it, and then reinstall it back on the piston. So now it's just time to get this done. So now we are gapped. Top and second ring are all at least 30 thousandths. Some of the bottom rings, I don't think we had to file any of the second rings, and some of them were just a loose fit on 30, which is fine. You can go up to 35 thousandths without having any issues, but we feel safe at 30. So we're all good. Mike's finishing up the last piston. Now we're going to set up our piston installer in the bore, and we're going to start jamming these pistons back in the holes. All right guys, we're all set up here. We have our pistons laid out. I'm going to be up top pushing them down through. Mike's going to be underneath. He's going to lift the truck up. He'll catch the piston, line it up with the journal on the crank. You can see down there, one of them, there it is. Line it up with the journal and install the cap, and loosely snug that up, and we'll torque them all down after we get them all put in. Here is our piston ring installer like I showed. It is tapered with a flat at the bottom. It compresses the rings as it goes through. We just put the piston in and push the piston straight into the bore. These work really nice. Nice way of putting the pistons in without disturbing anything. So we're going to take a little bit of oil, wipe on the rings as we go so it's not dry. We'll wipe a little on the skirt, and let's get started. Get these 8 pistons back in the bores and go ahead and tighten the rods. We are reusing rod bolts. I know a lot of people have question with that. I had question too, but it seems like the guys that are doing these type of builds don't have a problem. There's a guy on YouTube, maybe I'll put a link in the description, that he actually builds these same way. Takes a stock 6-liter, takes them apart, puts ring gap in them, reuses rod bolts, and he's made well over 1,500 horsepower on the engine dyno with these without issue. Has had failures, but it's not been rod bolts, it's actually been rods. So let's get this done and we'll move on. All right, we have piston installed in the installer. We're ready to drop it in. We have some lube on the bearing, we have some lube on the piston and ring, so we're ready to install this in number 1 cylinder. All right, we're all lined up here in the cylinder. We're just going to lightly tap. It should go in nice and smoothly. If you get any resistance or hear any weird noises, definitely stop and regroup. All right, we got it through the installer. Slid right in, nice and easy. Like I said, if anything binds up, then it's not right and you need to regroup. Now we're in the cylinder. We'll just keep pushing down and let Mike line up the rod. We'll just go nice and quick. We're not in a hurry here. It. All right, so now we're on the crankshaft journal. He'll put the cap on with some lube and snug the bolt up, and then we'll move to the next. There's one nice thing about the truck. You can actually jump right into the engine compartment here and get the job done. Yeah. Plenty of room.
Would you hit that one hit or not?
What? The impact? Yeah. Yeah, you can just hit it to where it yep. That'll keep us tight so we can spin the motor, and we're actually going to loosen them back up, torque them, and then there is an angle. I think it's 15 or 16 foot-pounds, and then it's so many degrees. So we'll figure that out. We're going to do all of them in one shot under there. So we just want to get all these pistons and rods reinstalled, and then we'll do all the rod torques to make sure we hit them all at the same time. There's number 2 piston in the hole. He's putting the cap on now. All right, so we got these pistons in. It spins nice and freely. We'll line up the second set of journals there. You good there, Mike?
Yep.
All right. And we'll start popping those pistons in. All right, guys, so after we install the pair of cylinders, we're going to spin it to, like I said, line up the next journal, but I like to spin it a complete revolution over, and you'll know if there's any issues. This is spinning really nice. Tell me when, Mike.
Keep going. Okay.
Right about there. All right, so we're ready for the third set of pistons. So cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There we have it, all 8 in there. We'll spin it over. It's nice and smooth. Don't see anything out of the ordinary. We're ready for the next step. All right guys, we're ready for our Texas Speed cam. As you can see, it's a 3-bolt. On the back of it, they laser etch all their cams. This is a same cam that's in my truck. It's a 224, 228, 600 lift on a 112. They typically recommend a 114, but I do like the 112 even for a turbo application. So we got it all cleaned up, air sprayed off, dried off. We'll lube it and go ahead and get it installed in the block. There we have it, slid up just about halfway in. I like to stop there and then lube the other half of the cam. It's a little less messy that way. Now we'll put our water pump bolts in the end here and finish installing the cam. And there we go, cam is installed. We'll spin it, make sure it spins freely. It should go in nice and smooth, easy the whole way, and spin freely when you're done. It will have a little resistance just because of the oil on it. Now we're ready for the timing chain and the cam gear. All right, we have the cam reinstalled. We got our lock plate on there. Now we're ready to get up on top dead center and line our marks up for our timing chain and sprocket and get all that put. We do use, GM did not, I do use Loctite on all these fasteners. It's not going to hurt, and it's cheap insurance. We are torquing this stuff. These bolts are 18 foot-pounds. All right, so we got our cam sprocket and chain on, timing marks lined up, top dead center. Our marks are lined up. I know you can't see it. It's really difficult to see down in there, but they are lined up. So now we're going to put Loctite on our cam gear bolts, and 26 foot-pounds is what they get torqued to. With that, we're actually ready for our front cover, and we have a brand new cover we got from Texas Speed's black powder coated, and it has a turbo drain built into it. Of course, this is going to be turboed as soon as we get that far. So we have our drain already welded into the front cover. It's 8AN. We're all cleaned up front here with some lube on the timing chain, so we're getting ready to put that on, that front cover on. We do have an alignment tool set over here. I think this is from Sac City Corvette. Yep. We can do it. This already has a brand new seal in, so there is a adapter with the seal on, and there's one with the seal out, and there's the rear main seal too. These are really nice. They're definitely worth the money. Since that's in there, I think we're going to just use that front seal and use this adapter to align it. Works really good. This one, I wouldn't typically use the front seal to align it, but there's no oil pan on it, so you don't have to push down on that seal or the oil pan rail there. So this works pretty good. We'll get it thrown up on there and show you how it works. All right, we got our front cover all on here with all the bolts loose. We can still move it around here, and that's the problem. There is no dowel pins to align this thing up, so we have to align it up. This alignment tool fits right on the crank snout, as you can see, and we'll just push it inside the cover on the seal, and because it's free, it'll line it up. With that alignment tool pushed in, it lines it up. Like I said, it fills the gap in there. This is a new seal, and we're not pushing down against the oil pan rail. So now all we have to do is tighten these bolts up, torque them down, pull this tool out, and we should be good to go with that front cover. With all them torqued down, we just simply remove our alignment tool. Now the front cover is good. We'll probably put this up in the air now and tackle the underneath stuff. So we'll put our windage tray back on. We'll put our oil pump dips or pickup tube back on with a new O-ring at the oil pump. And well, let's just get it up and we'll show you. Not so fast, guys. You should have reminded me. We have to torque these rod bolts down before we can put oil pan on. So we're going to spin the crank just like we did when we installed them, get two of the rods to accessible spots, and we'll go ahead and torque them to 15 foot-pounds, and it's 60 degrees further after that. All right, guys, got the oil pan. Everything's cleaned up, so we're ready to go up on. Let me give Mike a hand here so he doesn't drop the bolts, and we'll get this oil pan on and get this bottom end buttoned up. We still have to put the rear differential in, and a couple other small things under here, but it's getting close. We got our pan on here, all the bolts started. You do have to line these pans up. It's kind of easy though once we already had this installed with the transmission, so we'll just put the back two transmission bolts in. That'll pull the pan back. That's the way it was, that's the way it came apart, so it should go back together the same way. Once we get those snug, not overly tight, then we'll tighten the pan bolts up and we should be good to go with that. All right, torque spec on the oil pan. These back Very 2 are 106 inch-pound. They're the smaller ones that go up into the front cover. The rest of them all get to 18 foot-pounds, get torqued to 18 foot-pounds. And don't forget, you do have some up around the corner here behind that wiring. So oil pan's all torqued up. We'll get stuff buttoned up. We are going to put new cooler lines on while we're here. Perfect time to do it. And then we'll get the differential put back in. And then we'll go up top and button it up. All right, oil pan's all completely finished up. Differentials in, tightened up. We're putting the drive shaft in now. And then we'll drop this down and start knocking out the rest of that top. I think I already said that, but it took us a little while to get all this in, so I forget. Back up top here now, we did go ahead and take this opportunity to put a new oil pressure sensor in the back there. That's done. So the next step is going to be installing our lifters and lifter trays. So we're going to go ahead, we had them soaking in oil. We're going to insert them. Mike's actually going to do it out there. He's going to insert the lifters into the tray and hand me the set of 4 lifters and tray, and I'll put them into the motor one at a time. It's going to be a little bit of a mess, so we'll wipe the deck surface of the motor down after we get all that done. All right, we have all 16 lifters and all 4 lifter trays installed. The only thing we have left to do is put our bolts in. We'll put a little bit of Loctite on them and torque them down. We got the bolts in, torqued down. They go to 106 inch-pound. Now we're going to wipe the deck surface of the block off, get our dowel pins back in, and get our head gaskets on. All right, and here is our head gaskets. They are LS9 GM head gaskets, and it does say front, as you can see, so obviously make sure that goes towards the front, and they just lay on over top of the dowel pins. And we're ready for the heads. All right, now for these Texas Speed PRC heads. As you can see, they're all CNC machines. You can see they're all CNC ported. These should flow really nice. They have the all brand new stainless valves also. And exhaust side are ported too. Time to get them on there and make some power. All right guys, we're ready to put our heads on. We got everything cleaned up, blown off with air. We got our coolant plug in, and we're ready to drop the head on. Definitely make sure the head bolt holes in the block are blind holes. So make sure all the coolant's cleaned out, make sure all the debris is cleaned out, because it is possible to crack the block if you put it head bolt in, tighten it down with coolant still in there. So we're all cleaned out there. Of course, we have our head gaskets on, so it's time to drop these Texas Speed PRC heads on there. There's one side on. We got the top. We are putting ARP bolts in this too. We didn't opt for studs. We did go bolts, but they're still much better than stock. So we got all the top small ones in. That'll hold the head in place. We're going to go ahead and get the other head on, and then we'll start torquing. Get the rest of the bolts put in with washers. You do want to use the ARP Moly Lube in between the threads, but also in between the head of the bolt and the washer. So we'll get both the heads on, all the bolts in, and then start torquing the heads. We got everything torqued down. These ARP bolts torque 25 foot-pounds in sequence. It gives you the sequence. So 25, 50 for the second pass, and then 75 for the final, and then you go across the top on these smaller bolts and they go to 25 foot-pounds. So both heads are completely torqued down, installed. Now we're gonna, I guess we can go ahead and check, confirm push rod length. The ones we have are correct, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we ran into a snag here. We're checking push rod length. We do have these very nice looking Texas Speed full roller rockers we're gonna run. Unfortunately, all right, GoPro battery died again, unfortunately, so I didn't finish explaining that, but what it comes down to is we have the wrong length push rods for that setup. You should always double check push rod length, and it's a good thing we did because we have the correct preload for a stock lifter, but we do not have the correct preload for the Johnson lifters that we're using. So we're gonna have to round up some push rods. We're just checking and double checking to make sure we order the correct thing this time, and it is what it is. Sometimes that happens when you're using different aftermarket parts. It's just part of engine building. So unfortunately with that, it looks like definitely no startup video in this video, or startup in this video. And it looks like we're probably going to miss our dyno schedule appointment. So we'll just do the best we can, get the parts in as fast as we can. It'll be together. We're just going to be waiting on push rods. It's pretty much what it is. And we did want to run it a little bit before we swap the injectors over. And once we swap the injectors over, it's going to need a tune for sure to even start up. So and until then, thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.